see the wonderful star we're about to talk to. You're not here for me, but my name's Kara Warner. I'm a freelance journalist. Very lucky to get to talk to very talented people once in a while, and I would love to introduce the reason you're actually here. Star Amanda Seyfried. I know, yeah.
But I know you're there, and I appreciate it.
How did Mona pitch you the overall story? Did you get the script first?
Mona pitched me.
Okay. How do you describe it?
Mona is like David Cale's finger. She has a vision, and it kind of just it's like an impulse, and she can't help herself, and it becomes an obsession, and that's what you feel when she talks about something she's devoted to, like a story and telling a story. I think she was so in love with this woman that she had never heard about, and she was so curious about whether or not I had ever heard of her. And right away I was like, I know the Shakers. I understand, where they kind of existed in history in a very vague way, but I didn't know about Ann Lee herself and her journey. And she was like, well, this is my dream project, and I'm gonna give you the script. And then I read it, so I had a little bit of a backstory.
Did she tell you, before you read it, that the singing and the dancing were part of it?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, she was very clear that it's very musical. Not so much that I didn't really understand that it was going to be as physical as it was, and it needed to be, of course. But at that moment, I was just really drawn to any musical aspect of any movie or project.
Yeah. When did you get first? Because I think obviously the Mancunian accent, right? Or accent.
Yeah.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's a weird one.
It is. I again, that's your specialty. Some of the actors here too. I'm always enamored with accent work. Is that something you look to get like as soon as possible?
Yes, that was the first thing I did. Was try to wrap my head around it, because I'm really intimidated by accents, especially accents especially like Northern or Irish or accents from Great Britain. Like I'd rather do a German accent any day for some reason. And I don't know why. I really don't know what that is. Like Southern American, sure. New York, fine. My ear is more used to that. But that was just like, I kept looking for it online, and I couldn't find anybody that sounded like I thought they should sound. And then pretty soon after, I expressed to Mona when I signed on that I was very intimidated by it. She hooked me up with Tanner Marshall, who is our accent coach, and she designed this accent based on movies with this accent, with a Mancunian accent, Peterloo specifically, and also people like contemporary people like Maxine Peake, who maybe sounded closer to the specific area, but other than that, she just designed it because it's like none of us have heard it before. Right. So I basically made this joke when I was in London at the London Film Festival. I was like, you don't know if I did a good job because you weren't there, because I was so nervous to take it to the UK. And I've had great feedback. I think it's bullshit because sometimes I watch it back and I'm like, that just sounds wrong. But that's my own ear. We're always the hardest on ourselves. Yeah. Unless we really are doing a bad job, and people just don't want to tell us the truth. And that's also possible. I understand. I know I'm not perfect at the Mancunian accent, and that's fine because there are other mountains to climb in this movie.
I mean, I think it's important to point out this is an independent film. Obviously there's studio behind it.
Yeah, I know. Woo! And what I found out the other day during a Q&A was that, but from Andrew Morrison, the producer who works, he hasn't slept for at least 3 years, because he did The Brutalist too. And this is an epic, fable. Based on a very real person, but it is a fable. It is mystical and mythological in a lot of ways, which I think makes it even more special, like a fairy tale. But that guy was like, sometimes we just didn't have enough money for the next week, but we figured it out. And I was like, we were in Budapest sweating in 100-degree weather. We weren't sure if we were gonna get shut down. Like, I don't know if we ever got that close. It might have just been kind of a, maybe he was just exaggerating his own stress level, but I didn't know, and I'm so glad I didn't, because it would have been devastating because of the work that we put in, and we were all there.
Yes. It was, in my bit of research in acquainting myself with this wonderful film, it was the complete spirit of an independent film, one trailer that you graciously shared with the cast.
Well, no, it wasn't even a trailer. It was, we all had trailers at our base camp, small trailers, you know, just to get changed and have breakfast in the morning. But there was one little trailer on set with a bathroom. And it was considered like the air conditioner box. And that's where my dog would sit. And then we would just go in and out and, you know, drag in blood. And there was always a few bottles of wine there. And everything, listen, we were like the Shakers. We're all unified, we're all treated equal, everything about it is, and that's, I think, also the spirit of the movie. It's like, we knew what we were doing, there's no hierarchy on this set. Obviously there's Leah and Mona, and we needed her, we called her Mother Mona. But it was very much like an independent film where we're just like, we are doing it because, by golly, we love this. And it's always a nice feeling. I mean, that doesn't make it any easier, but
right.
Nice.
It seems like everyone assembled on this project, you know, from top to bottom, and really loved what they were doing, and like you hung out together. I hear of a great dance party after a take, a particular long day.
We only did that once. It was like, we're gonna play music at the end of every day. We're gonna let loose. We only did the first day.
That's a good start.
But it did feel very cathartic, and also we were so tired that you think that we couldn't move our feet just 1 minute more, and everybody got like this second wind because it felt very. I don't know. It was. It's just what happens when people come together to dance. It's just an energetic sharing of energies. It's just always positive.
Yeah. Well, that's I would love to talk about the movement in this, because I like to tell people I got to go in blind to this film, and that first opening sequence is so powerful, because when the women in the field, I was like, oh, is this about witches? And I mean that in the most complimentary sense.
Yes, I agree.
But can you talk a little bit about the dance and the specific movement? Because you've done dance before. I'm just wondering what this kind of movement was like for you.
Yeah, but I don't enjoy dancing with choreography. I would like to. I want to just improv. You know, if I dance at a wedding, I'm just in my own little world, which is, I think, what we all enjoy when we dance, to just be free with our bodies. And you couldn't do that, but you had to make it feel like it was free, and that it did come from some higher power and some type of meditation. And sometimes these Shakers would dance for days, like very much like a rave. And that was their drug, that was their way of being sensual, because they didn't, fornicate at all, which is another thing, completely radical and beautiful though, in the reason behind it. But it takes me a really long time to learn choreographed moves, and I had a lot of time to do that. And when I wasn't working, Celia Rawson Hall and or her assistant would meet me up upstate in this beautiful little acting studio, and we just moved for 5 hours at a time, and these movements had to feel second nature, of course, because it was her way of worshiping, and it had to be primal and natural, organic, but also they moved not for performance value, they moved to feel closer to God, and that's just that made it so. I felt like the responsibility was just that much more extreme, but it did take me a long time. It was very frustrating at first, because I was like, well, what? Wait, what? Because this thing, it was that second nature now, but only now. no, during the shooting, but we and then we had a lot of time, we had a week before we started shooting where we were all together. But the movement is so important to their journey and to their worship, and so is the music. The music, of course, comes in more naturally. But I will say the music, that didn't feel as organic as I thought it was gonna feel. Daniel Blumberg, who composed and kind of reinvigorated these old Shaker hymns. Reinvigorated is like, to say the least. That's like, there's beautiful words I can use to
Do you feel like
articulate
you were finding
that.
like a different part of your voice?
I was singing from a different part of my body, completely, and it's revolutionized the way I sing and the way I relate to my own voice. I don't listen the same way. There's no judgment anymore when I sing, because I'm just accepting that I'm human and that I'm not gonna sing the way I thought I always would with the right training. Like, my vibrato is my vibrato, and I have to accept that, and that's okay, because it worked for Aunt Lee. And maybe I'm not a beautifully trained singer, maybe I'll never be on Broadway, but I think my voice is just fine, and like, it worked for this. But again, different rhythms, that was hard. Sometimes Daniel doesn't have a rhythm, and if for anybody who trained, isn't, trained musically or in movement, 1, 2, 3, like, that's crucial.
Yeah.
And there was not that when it came to the music.
Did you sleep really well while you were making this? Because it just seems like this
Oh, I always sleep well.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if it's the Lexapro,
Yeah.
just the fact that I've always been a good sleeper, but it's a talent.
I worry about that because, well, again, this is just because there was so much going on. You're focused on an accent. You've got the dance and you've got the singing. It just feels like you're exerting so that.
Yeah, I think the sleep is probably better, but weird dreams. I mean, I always have weird dreams, but maybe weirder.
Oh, do you like dream in character?
Nope.
Oh.
No, my dreams are as abstract as they come, I think. Yeah.
I like that. One sequence I would love to talk about too is the filming on the ship.
Yeah.
Because they found an actual, like, old period, kind of appropriate museum type ship that you
Very
actually
much.
used. And I know that, you were actually on a bit of water, not open sea, of course, but can you talk a little bit about that experience? Like, again, you're having to do everything on a moving object.
Yeah, no, yes, but it did not, it was immovable.
Right.
It did not move, it was a museum, but it was so period perfect for this. And we didn't have money to actually build anything, so we used the ship in Sweden, so we all went to Sweden for a week, and that was really cool, but, ships move and ours didn't, so you can imagine that was another, like, thing that we had to really be, connected about. Like, we're moving together, right? The ship was going, wow, it's a storm right now? Okay. And if we weren't moving in the same direction, it, would look dumb. And so that was an interesting challenge, but every challenge that came that was new, first of all, was like refreshing and funny, and second of all, like, brought us together as a cast. I mean, not that we needed any more, any more to bring us together, but it was interesting for sure, and we needed all of it, but there's so much I can say about it.
It does.
It
Everyone
wasn't big enough.
Yeah, everyone I was talking to does feel it felt like you were at camp in a like just a very magical but difficult, challenging, like everything that you would want when you're making such a very unique piece of art like this film.
Yeah, but we did have one day on the open sea, and Mona lied to us. She's like, no, it's not gonna be. She's just so gentle. No, it's not gonna be rough, because I say I don't do boats. I don't do boats. In fact, there was a scene in The Dropout where we went on. Oh my god. I was like, they were like, sailboat, and I said it in the production meeting, I was like, yacht, big, gotta be big. And they were like, okay, we found a yacht, this is great. And I was like, great, gonna keep it docked. They're like, we're gonna go out a little bit, but it's not gonna be bad. And I immediately got ill and had to sleep for 2.5 hours until they got back to land. And then we shot everything with my double except on my face, and that was docked. And sorry, that's what you get when I tell you that I don't do boats. And then Mona was like, it's gonna be fine, it's gonna be super easy, it's not gonna be windy. We went out in the fucking open water. Everybody got sick. And I did the same thing I did on The Dropout. I went down underneath, which everybody tells you not to do, but I'm telling you, it actually works. And I laid down, and I went, and I allowed my body to move, and I put on my favorite musician, and I kept breathing and telling myself that it was gonna be over soon. But I'm telling you, people vomited. And then of course we were that much closer again. But that, I'm not saying she didn't mean to lie. She believed that we were gonna be fine. she didn't understand that we have really weak constitutions.
I mean, that's tough. Your equilibrium gets messed up. It makes sense.
It's so physical,
Yes.
but it's also our heads got in the way too.
When did you, I don't know if you were someone who like looks at dailies, or when did you start to get a sense of what you had? Did you wait until it was like an APR or a screening situation?
Oh God, I think, you know what, the cool thing about Mona is that everybody's invited to the monitor. There's nothing, she's not separate from anybody. Again, like it was very, we were all in the same boat. And I remember after, I think it was this second day of Beautiful Treasures, which is, you know, the very long but very important sequence of dancing through pain and grief and the various different parts of her life, you know, when she's in love, and then when she's pregnant, and then after she's lost her children, and that had to be very profound, and there was just a lot of work that went into that, and the dancing was just, it was relentless. Those 2 days, we just needed to spend all our time there, and I pulled the curtains back to where the monitors were, separate from the big room that we dance in, and I saw all these women, and Celia Rosenhall, our choreographer, and her wife holding their baby son, who I got really tight with, and Nat, our choreographer, who's also an actor in this, and just all these women, like oh God, our script supervisor, and just everybody just standing behind the monitor watching playback, and I normally don't watch playback just because we don't usually have enough money for playback in every show now. They don't hire a playback guy anymore, and it's literally comes down to money. So like I'm just not used to seeing playback, and it's just we're all watching, and I'm seeing these women, these dancers. All the dancers were standing behind. There must have been like 40 people, like a collective like relief, like sigh of relief. Some people were crying, and I was like, oh my God, it's so effective. This is so beautiful. This is so it was just so profound, and it felt like in some way this is the first communion with Ann Lee. It felt really powerful, and it felt that way the whole time. But that was like the first big moment that I was like, this is insanely special, more than I thought.
Right. Well, again, we were talking about Mona and all the right people assembled for this, and I love talking to your cinematographer and like having the camera in the dance is so special.
Oh my God!
All those choices are so.
And nobody got hurt.
Yeah.
Because you would think someone would whip their head into the camera. Because we are just we are exploding outward. Our bodies are bigger, like 10 feet tall when we're dancing. Because we're stretching our souls, you know, as the characters, and I'm surprised that like no one's hair burnt by the real candles. No one got any kind of lung diseases. These candles, there were hundreds of them all the
Especially
time.
colored the set.
And they would and they would turn the candles off. They would put them out between takes, and everybody still has their faces and their wits about them, and that's Mona, maybe.
Yes, real fire. That's real fire. That's a real structure burning down too in the end too. Not that you would think it's a visual effect.
Well, they didn't have the money for it, and that's that's like old school. They did a lot of old school stuff in this movie. Just even the way they shot it, and it felt like we were part of something historical. Even we are, but. We didn't have all the bells and whistles you would have in a studio movie, which, by the way, more money, more access to stuff, which is great and fun, but more money, more problems, maybe sometimes.
Yeah, right stuff for a project. I mean, for this, it does feel like outside looking and everything happened the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about the reaction so far? Because it's strong reaction here. I think people are really enjoying. That it's a little bonkers too, in the best way. Right?
Yeah, the tonal shifts are my favorite part.
Yeah.
I think because, I mean, humans are weird, and especially these shakers. I mean, that scene when I come home and I haven't eaten and I hallucinated and now I'm the Messiah. There's such truth and beauty and innocence in the way they respond to me and the way I'm responding to the world, and that comes from like desperate need to survive, desperation in any way, like need to feel belonging somewhere. And I get it, and it's absurd, but it's and it's almost like too weird to be true, but that's human nature, and Mona captures that in such a funny way sometimes. It doesn't always have to be so heavy, and where the levity comes in is like it's everything. I think you're like, oh, this is weird. David, what are they doing? What is this music? Wait, what?
Yeah.
And it's funny. You can laugh because you can't. Nothing can take itself too seriously. It really can't. Even when you're telling a story about trauma, and religion and spirituality. We're still like, we need some kind of levity. We need some kind of, break from that, and Mona can weave in and out of that in such a beautiful way that I don't think a lot of people are willing or brave enough to do.
Right.
Because they don't want to turn people off.
Yeah, that goes for the acting too, just because you're all very committed to.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you have to be. I mean, looking at Lewis saying, "You were my sister, but you were also my mother," and the purest, most beautiful. I mean, I love that man. I love these faces around me.
Yes.
Scott Handy, he's like, I'm so lifted by this cast. It really, it was so nice to be there. I love acting so much, and like we were all there. We were all like, yeah, great, bring it on.
Yeah.
They said, what now? Okay, and
Yes.
you gotta believe from the very beginning that you gotta accept these things,
Yes.
even if it feels silly.
Yes, everyone is committed to the Testament family. I mean, it's so
I hope so.
fun.
I hope
Yeah.
people listen, I am all for anything that makes people question things. Like, you don't necessarily have to like something or have to like every part of something. Like, we are as absurd and wacky as we are as human beings, we are also able to have many things be true at the same time, and this is proof, like, I think, and we all have different experiences watching things, but I do hope there are some things about this that can feel interesting and make you curious about something about you or that.
Yes. We're running out of
I'm sorry, I'm talking so much.
So just to wrap this up, I just would love to hear you just talk about what you were enjoying most about this stage in your career, because you're making such really lovely choices, and we're getting to see you a lot, which I always enjoy. I'm just wondering, you like the muscles that you're flexing, you like the people you're getting to.
It could be better. I could be happier. I'm promoting 2 movies. I mean, I could be happier. I'm getting on a plane tonight, and I have to see my kids, and I think that they might remember me though. But no, it's okay. And honestly, they're super strong. But I need to get the fuck home. And promoting, promoting is definitely harder than the work itself. But I love talking about things I'm proud of, and I say that to say that I love The Housemaid. I really liked doing it. I liked playing a crazy, almost demonic asshole, because I haven't been able to play that before, not in this way. So in terms of career stuff, I got a role of a lifetime handed to me on a silver platter by Paul Feig, who I think is really funny, and really can tap into that kind of old school, nostalgic, campy, thriller, sexy, but weird, and I loved it. I loved every minute of shooting that, and I shot that after An Lee, and I loved every minute shooting An Lee, even when I was very cold or sick, which wasn't the whole time, it was just a few moments, but it's just because it's challenging doesn't mean it's not incredibly, you're lucky you're doing it, playing these characters. And so I feel like because I'm a mom, I'm getting more interesting roles, and it's less about taking my clothes off and making out with people, and which is fun too. but it's more. There's just so much more depth in the roles that I've gotten, and I still have to audition for things. In fact, I'm gonna have to audition for something in the coming weeks. I'm not gonna say what it is, because if I don't get it, then it'll be embarrassing. But I understand my role in things. I have to prove my certain things, but in other ways I don't have to prove myself at all. And I like challenges, and I'm very happy where I'm very glad about these 2 specific characters that are coming out at the same exact time. Go see The Housemaid though. Honestly, I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of The Testament of Anne Lee. I don't think a movie like this is gonna come around for a bit.
Yeah.
Unless people are just gonna rip it off, which is kind of cool.
Well, I think this is an audience with, we got actors, we got filmmakers,
yeah,
so it's a great message for all of you.
Thanks.
creative
Sorry I
people.
talked so much.
That's great.
I love sisters, I love talking actors. I love what we do so much. And thanks for listening to me.